Mushrooms in minutes. We're doing 2 very fast presentations, if we can do it fast enough. They are going to be a spicy mushroom ceviche that is basically a raw preparation except for the mushrooms. And then we're going to do a bacon that's a really quick fry that you can do in an air fryer, an oven, a pan, or Valita, could you grab a copy of the book too? Thanks so much. All right, so mushrooms. I just learned recently that humans, we branched off of the tree of life with mushrooms after plants. So we're closer related to a mushroom than a mushroom is to a plant. You get what I'm saying? Mushrooms are not vegetables. All right, you're closer to a vegetable than a mushroom, maybe, depending on how you look at it. So don't degrade them by taking their classification away or taking them out of their family. They're much more complex, much more evolved than plants are, I believe. And they could be our meat, and they could be our accompaniment. They just make all of our cuisine more sustainable, seasonal, and local. We're able to cook fresh mushrooms that are grown all year. They're pretty easy to grow, small amounts. Pretty tough to grow, large amounts consistently and well, because you get all sorts of problems. Different crossbreeding and insect, all sorts of problems. And I buy and sell sprouted mushrooms from Plainville, Michigan that are the best quality. Valita here is one of the grower, the assistant grower. So if you have any specific questions about the mushrooms beyond rudimentary knowledge, you could come to our table and ask Valita if she's not busy, and she'll have more than enough to tell you about it. Now, I have a little book that we just put out for this event. It's a $12 little chap book, 11 recipes. Now, unfortunately, it does include the 2 free ones you have in front of you, so it's a little devalued today. But it also includes recipes from the other VegFests. So it has the rib recipe from 2019, or the seafood recipe from 2019, and the rib recipe from 22, I think. Anyway, so the recipes from different VegFests are in here, and as well as some other ones that are our favorites. All of them are pretty easy, except our rib one that's complicated, but give it a try. Today, the mushrooms we're going to be cooking, we have 4 different mushrooms that are going in our ceviche. We have our bear's head. Bear's head is like lion's mane. It's a close cousin. It's Hericium americana. It's wild, but this is cultivated, not wild, but the initial one was from the wild. And so if you pull it apart, you can see inside the interior, it has this beautiful structure. There's so much surface area for caramelization. I love these mushrooms. We're also going to use the Black King. It's a hybrid between an oyster and a trumpet. Then we're going to use some of our king trumpet. They're very firm. These are the ones used for scallops. And then we're also going to use our polar oyster, a white, winter-growing. Eventually he'll move to a different oyster this next month. But these are the ones in the cool temperature. And I actually got him to start growing white oysters for our chicken that we stopped making. But for years we were making frozen chicken. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we take, actually here. We're not serving this, so it's okay. Don't worry. All right, so we got a couple cups of water. We're going to take our seafood seasoning mix. Now, we sell this at our booth. I source 6 different seaweeds from Canada that are organic. I grind them and blend them, so we have a real deep seafood flavor. It's one of the ways we get instant success fast without putting too much effort into it. You could take 2 or 3 seaweeds and have a similar effect, or just buy my mix. It's much easier. But if you want to go through the trouble, you could buy dulse flakes that are red. You could buy kelp powder, and then you can get your nori sheets. Grind them up in a blender. You grind the red dulse first, then you add the powdered nori at the end. You bring those together, and you don't have one simple flavor. We have more of a complex, deeper seafood flavor. That's why we do this, so that you can cook fast, easy, vegan seafood at home. Mushrooms, vegetables, jackfruit. You can turn anything into seafood if you put your mind to it. We're going to put just about a teaspoon in here. Or I actually have a recepe. Does anyone need a recipe? No? Oh, one, couple? All right, so we follow the recipe fairly well for the sampling. We're calling for a teaspoon of seaweed powder, 2 teaspoons of sea salt. Now, the treat I have for you today, if I brought it, is the sea salt that I'm using in your sample here is our special ramp sea salt that we use with wild garlic and wild ramps. I don't have any for sale. This was my last bag, but it's in your sample. So enjoy it. Maybe next time you see me, I'll have some from this season. But right now, I'm all out. But we're going to use this. So this is an opportunity. When you're using salt, you could use a smoked salt. You could use an herbed sea salt. You could use, a Himalayan sea salt. It's an opportunity for flavor. So when you're choosing your ingredients and building your pantry, you can start building flavor from that initial conception when you choose what salt to buy or how many salts you carry. You got more options, and you can go deeper flavor faster. I have knives somewhere. All right, so these mushrooms, we're going to break down pretty fast and loose. This guy, I'm going to get ready for our bacon later. So I'm going to cut it to this shape for the bacon. And these pieces, these offcuts, are going to the ceviche. Likewise, with this broth, when I'm done cooking this, I should put it and reserve it and make ramen or chowder tomorrow. So I should have all those plans in place when I initially break down my mushroom. Now, if you're a home cook, it doesn't really matter. You're just cooking small amounts. Once you're talking about tens and dozens and hundreds of pounds of ingredients, then you want to be more mindful of what all the waste goes and where all the flavorful components that you're building can be utilized. It's all that energy, all those calories, all that flavor that's really, it's a huge opportunity and resource to not exploit once you have it in your hand. All right, so this is a really rough chop. And this cutting board's way too small and crowded. Don't mind me. You could wait till this water is boiling like we did, or you could just throw it in there right now because I need room in my cutting board. These guys, I cut the bottom off. It's really firm. It's really rough. If it feels like it won't be tasty, I don't want to eat it. But also, if there's any substrate, I cut that off. But he does a really good job of not leaving the substrate on. Actually, Valita did a really good job probably of harvesting these. I should have asked her if she harvested them. So these are the Black King. These are soft. I like mixing different mushrooms. A similar reason why I like the different seaweeds, but more when it comes to a diverse texture. Because we have different, when you have fish and seafood, a lot of times it's maybe more than one seafood. Or also, it's a misdirection. It's an illusionist technique to have, if you have it be more than one thing, or if you cut it differently than it's normally cut, and you have a couple of different things to redirect them to think, then it's hard to pinpoint on what exactly it is. So if you have multiple different mushrooms that have different textures, you might be like, oh, is this even a mushroom? It's easier to kind of fool people or to fool yourself. Because and when you're cooking mock meats, there's like the fat and the lean, and they come together in different cuts of the whatever. You could do a similar thing with mushrooms by different varieties. All right, so then this guy is kind of the most awkward to cut. Just really do a rough chop. For ceviche, it just doesn't matter. And this ceviche is great for tacos or for nachos. If you're going to entertain, man, it's the easiest thing to do. Cold ceviche nachos. You don't have to have anything hot. You can even do a cheese sauce cold, and it's delicious. But you don't need a cheese sauce with ceviche, actually. What am I talking about? Ceviche nachos, I don't put a cheese sauce on. I usually do a crema and avocado, like, guac kind of thing. All right, so here's our fourth mushroom in there. And you can see it's starting to boil. I just cooked this for 3 minutes. I don't eat mushrooms raw. I don't like button mushrooms, but I don't eat them raw either. If I'm at a salad bar, I ignore it. You're really not supposed to. There's different reasons. I also don't like portobellos, and there's reasons that I shouldn't say. But I stay away from them for a couple of reasons. Anyway, so this is cooking, right? Let that cook for just 2 minutes. Once it boils, any potential pathogens or any whatever you might be worried about, It's all cooked. You don't have to also be worried about like food handling, getting it in there, because now there's much less to deal with. Like I had people cutting. I'm like, all right, once it's cooked, I'm dealing with it. It's like I don't need to know you to handle my raw mushroom. Once it's cooked, I didn't know you, as far as volunteers go. Okay, great. So this has been boiling now. We're going to get a little bit of the veg ready. All right, so you could do a lot of different veg. Kind of mandatory, of course, is lime. Some sort of onion, scallion, spring onion would be great. Usually I'd use a new clean cutting board. Here, let's do this. All right. We're just going to put a little scallion in there. I like to do it as fine as possible. And I'm going to do this quick and fast, hopefully. It's not that fast anymore. I'm going to add tomato. Now, you don't have to, but in the recipe, I said at least one of the three, tomato, cucumber, or jicama. I have all in the sample today. You have tomato, cucumber, jicama, and avocado. Again, do any ones you want. If it's your first time having it and you like avocado, make sure to put avocado in there because it's so good. But if you're serving it for an event you're doing tomorrow, don't put the avocado in until tomorrow. Everything else in, avocado right before service. Cucumber, we could peel them. Cone, recone, my favorite place for peelers. They have different sizes. They're just the best. Kohn, Rikon. It's like Swiss, I think. They have smaller ones that are like $3. These are like $5 or something. They're the coolest peelers. All right, so I have cucumber here. Make sure it's a fresh cucumber. I accidentally froze some of mine, so I didn't use those. And I bought some more this morning because I care about y'all. All right, so cucumber, a small dice. Now remember, when you're cutting this, how are you going to eat it? Is it going to be on a taco? Then don't make the cuts big, it's fine. Is it going to be on nachos? Maybe make them a little smaller so you can get 6 elements on that nacho. So think about it. And if you don't have time, just hurry up and do it, like I did earlier. All right, so cucumbers. Jicama, this is really fresh. Peel it. I'm not going to do it right now. Peel it. Taste it before you incorporate it. Before you do all the trouble, taste a piece. Make sure it's quality. Every 5 or 10 jicama, it's off because I get it late and it's not fresh, and then it makes the whole thing taste kind of sweet and gamey. Same thing with avocados. I make sure they're tasty before I incorporate them. Also, watermelon radish. Well, we'll get back to that in a second. Okay. Now, the serrano pepper, we went pretty spicy. I forgot the serrano pepper. I used them all in the sample, so let's pretend I did a finely mince on the serrano pepper. If you're feeding people that love serrano pepper, cut it however you want. If they're skittish, put just a little bit in a fine dice. If you're feeding different people and you want them to have spicy and non-spicy, cut large slices so the people that don't want it can easily remove them from their food. So there's different ways to appeal to a broad crowd or a diverse crowd. For you, I just went crazy and cut them as small as I could and as fast as I could because I was running out of time. So, all right, this is done here. When this guy's done, take a colander. Now, this is that broth you want to save, right? Because it is delicious and it's perfect for a soup. You want to get all the liquid out. And we'll let that hang out for just a second. So we want to let it cool too before we incorporate it. So we'll come back to that in a sec. Finish chopping this. Now, this cilantro, there's a famous chef in Mexico City that I saw. He says he doesn't use the leaves. He only uses the stems. So really, you guys use both. Use the whole plant. Use the leaves, use the stems, because most chefs use just the leaves. So do like all the chefs and use both. And so we have the cilantro in there, the avocado. Now, a lot of injuries happen from avocado because people do this. They go through it and they cut their hand. A lot. So don't do that. I didn't do it. I went down on the board. Now, if I'm like at home, maybe I'll do it slowly with a paring knife. But yeah. All right, we're going to put a little avocado in here. We're going to get a nice small dice. Hey, Valita. Could you do me a favor and bring me a bacon seasoning? Thank you so much. This is great. She's never coming back. I asked the mushroom farmer, can I borrow your assistant? He's like, ask her. I'm like, well, I should have asked her first. All right, so some lime. And I like to hit the lime as soon as the avocado's in play so that it starts preserving it and retarding any discoloration, any oxidification. Thank you. All right, we have here, salt and pepper and flax. So the reason why I use flax is because it has a fatty mouthfeel, omega fatty acids, and when you eat it, it has a scent. It's a little buttery, but also a little fishy. It has the same healthful qualities, some of the same healthful characteristics that seafood brings. So by adding it with seaweed, you have more of a deeper healthfulness and also a deeper seafood flavor. Just a little trick, just a little bit of oil. Not a lot. Flax oil. Fresh cracked pepper, pretty necessary. And then your salt, thank you so much. Your salt of the day, our ramp sea salt. You already had a little bit in that. I'm add a little bit more now. I like to salt both times. I might have left that out of the recipe, and I apologize. All right, this is too warm to add, but I'm going to do it anyway so I can move on and call it done. Because you guys all have good imaginations. And you could be like, he's not ruining the quality of those vegetables by adding that warm mushroom to it and retarding its health safetiness for the next 4 hours. Nobody should eat this unless like an hour. Anyway, the danger zone is between 40 and 140 degrees, or 44 and 140 degrees. Food stays in there more than 6 hours, throw it out, unless it's a shelf-stable food. Blah, blah, blah. You have 6 hours to get from hot to under 44 degrees. You have 4 hours to get below one threshold. I forgot what that is. Anyway, so just so you know, like as far as leaving stuff on the counter, putting stuff away. So, all right, so the ceviche is done. This is it. It's a beautiful salad. We're going to be selling it in large portions at our booth with a bag of plantain chips. So like a large portion. More than that. Great taco, great nachos. We're going to do this next one really fast because it is very fast. 1 second, and we're going to do bacon. Apologize for the crazy mess here today, but such is life sometimes. All right, so the bacon, go back to our mushroom side. We have this is our trumpet, our king trumpet oyster. Now we have lots of different mushrooms we could use. We could use a thicker one of these, but texturally, this is gonna be our best bet. Here's another big one, all right? So these are the king trumpet. You see the tops, beautiful. I like to shape it a little bit, it makes the cut easier. This is my favorite mandolin. This is the wide one. You don't need the wide one for mushrooms, but you do for like cabbage and root vegetables. They're Japanese, they're like $30. They're worth it. Just be mindful when you're using it. And hopefully don't look away when you're doing it. All right, you take the soft end and you go first. I just did a lot of these, so I figured it out. The soft end, you go downstroke, you apply some pressure, and if you find that it tears at the end, then you need to make a cut. I just need to trim the bottom a little bit. It's a little too brittle down there, so it didn't want to separate easily. See, that's happening again. You can also use a knife. You can also use a peeler. Another reason why this super wide peeler is awesome is you could do stuff like this. Let's see if I can actually do it. Never mind. There you go. is a little dangerous, but if without a mandolin, it's a little harder. But with the mandolin, it's easier. And this is a great time where gloves aren't necessary, but they're helpful. They buy you a couple millimeters, which is enough. As long as you're moving slowly, it's plenty of time to stop and not cut yourself any further, and not go through the nitrile glove. Okay, so again, I'm trimming these up, but this one's pretty big. I can actually get some bacon slices out of these trims. So I'm gonna do that right now. How about summer, huh? Jeez, why did it come already? Just kidding. It's our fall spring, or no, it's our fall summer. All right, so these are actually pretty beautiful pieces. So that'll be good. I'm gonna get the heat going now while I'm cutting. This pan warmed up. All right. I was worried I didn't have my oil. Now these are my scraps for later, I guess. Those are for my ceviche. So you make the bacon first, then the ceviche. Next time. That's the right process. All right, I'm going to cut. Actually, I don't need to cut much more. We have enough cut, but just so you can see it again, and I'll do it one more time like this. See, slowly. I just move it a little bit to get that last little bit go cut. Kind of saw that last little bit because the blade's a little dull, and I looked away. But the gloves really do help, like I said, by some millimeters. All right, cool. Oh, here, I'll show you by hand, too. While I'm waiting for the pan to heat up a little more. You could just do it by hand without having to be crazy, like me. All right, what I did was I flattened the surfaces to give myself a good, even cut here. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I can then come through. Carefully, I'm using my fingers to glide the knife blade to keep thin. Coming up high enough to make that cut. Anyway, so there you go. See that? And then these, if I want to sell the idea that they're bacon more, I'll trim them up, make them a little more straight. Get those wings off there. All right, a little bit of oil. Now you could do this oil-free in an air fryer. You could also take the marinade, instead of doing it this way, mix it with the raw product and then bake it or put it in an air fryer with no oil. Now, you won't have this crispiness, you won't have as deeper of a mouthfeel, but you're satisfying your diet, whatever you need to do. Do what you gotta do. Or you could use a little mister with a tiny bit of oil. This is taken from a tofu recipe, which initially was fried. Anyway. But you're making bacon. Way healthier than pork bacon. Definitely for the pig. The healthiest pork bacon that the pig everyone should eat. Now your doctor might tell you different. But if your doctor tells you to eat pork bacon, run. All right, so we got a hot pan. You can't really be too hot unless you want to walk away from it. But right now I'm standing right here. If it starts burning, I can flip it and I know what's up. Now I could end up with a grease fire. Sure, that can happen. But I brought a fire extinguisher. I was like, do you guys have a fire extinguisher? They're like, no. Are you planning on setting a fire? I'm like, no, but I have a fire extinguisher. The guy whose camera this is worried. That grease, he sees it coming for it. Sorry, man. It'll be over soon. All right, so there's a couple things going on here we could do. The recipe called for, it involves soy sauce, liquid smoke, nutritional yeast, and maple syrup. All right. We're going to do this way. This is the standard way. But if you want gluten-free, actually, I'll do a gluten-free version here. Does anyone need a gluten or soy-free version of this? And when I say gluten, I mean soy sauce. That's it. Does anyone need that for their sample? No? Okay, great. So you can just eat whatever comes to you. It's what I'm showing this is what you got. But I'm going to show you an alternative for other people. And that's if you're going to use, instead of soy sauce, you could sub liquid aminos. This is coconut aminos. It's made from the palm tree, not the fruit, but the tree. You take that and you back it up with smoked salt. This is applewood. It's the best for bacon. You do those together in place of the soy sauce, not in place of the salt too. Capiche? Because liquid aminos doesn't have all that fat. Or sorry, I'm looking at fat. Doesn't have all the salt that soy sauce does. Now I have a little extra oil here that I want to get out of the pan. I'm gonna do something a little crazy, but it works. Now that broth is delicious. A little fried mushroom oil. All right, this is a real small amount. What I usually do is anyone got a time for me? All right, we're about 30 minutes in. All right, I'll just do this here. Usually what I do is I take this out, I do another batch. Take it out, do another batch. This is how I made yours earlier. Then I bring it all together after it's cooked for the seasoning. I'll turn the pan off if it's still warm, and if there's residual heat. I'll bring all the bacon that's part cooked back to the pan, right? So imagine this is a bigger pile. It's been three or four servings of rotations of cooking. They're looking crispy. They're changing shape. Now we come in. Now we have two options here. You guys can go to our table and buy our vegan bacon seasoning and just add it to this, toss it, and you're done, which I made it easier on you. Or you could do our original recipe. You take these 4 components, or 5 actually, and you hit just a little bit. Usually I mix this in a bottle and I have it in my fridge. I call it my bacon juice. Not the best name, but. All right, so we take just a little bit of soy sauce, maple syrup, liquid smoke, black pepper, and usually it's not the small amount, so you toss it. So basically we're wetting the dry, right? And then what do you do after you wet the dry? Nobody? Dry the wet. All right, there you go. Wet the dry. There's other things that I do that. It's like, I thought it was a trend, but not that popular. All right, so then we dry the wet. And what we're trying to do is not have a nutritionally coated bacon, but we want the nutritionally to sop up all the moisture and create that and back that fatty mouthfeel up and add more wholesomeness, but also more deliciousness. Now, the perfect bacon won't have any traces of nutritionally to see. This one's not perfect. But you could see what we did, where we basically added enough to dry up that liquid so that what you're left with is a pretty tasty product. But what you're able to do then is then take this, refrigerate it, or hold it, and then reheat it in the oven or within 30 seconds in a frying pan. So once it's at this stage, you could freeze it, you could refrigerate it, you could even dry it out and dehydrate it and go camping with it, as long as you get all the moisture out. Meaning you could turn it shelf stable. It makes delicious BLTs. It's awesome on baked potatoes. And I think that's it. I think it was a little whirlwind, but we got your bacon recipe and your ceviche recipe. Real quick, maybe a minute and a half. Any questions? Nobody? All right, great. You could find us. We're at table 51, furthest corner from this spot. Direct diagonal. We got mushroom cookbook. We got spices, and we have fresh mushrooms. And ask any questions over there you want about the mushrooms. Thanks a lot.